Thank you so much. I have to say, and I was telling all of them that this is the first time I'm so nervous for a session. I mean, look at the people sitting to my right. Come on, round of applause for them, please. Great. So I'll jump right in, not in any particular order. So feel free to pick up the mic and answer whenever you feel like adding to the conversation. I actually want to start with clarifying something. We're talking about challenges of measuring returns in the new media landscape, right? For the benefit of everybody and even me, what do you define as new media? Is it only digital? Is it only measurable? Is it only innovation? Is it only technology? What is new media? And how do you guys think about it? Yes, of course.
I thought new media is not to be measured. Because when we started 25, 30 years back, there was only print and TV, and we said new media is for test and learn. So when this topic came, I thought I'll come and talk about why are we even measuring all these new media? Shouldn't we test it to its potential? But the reality is they evolve very fast. So should I test for the potential, or should I be ready for the evolution that it's bringing and not get caught up by these words of measurement and ROI without even understanding the true potential of these new media? That's one way to look at it. And I strongly believe in it because putting measurement in every lens um makes the work null and void. How will we even understand the impact of the failure without letting it fail? If we put too many measurements, then we want it to desperately succeed, isn't it?
Wow, that's a brilliant point, right? I mean, actually something to ponder over. Naveen, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I would. Thanks, Preeti, for setting this up, and absolutely agree that new media needs to have a shelf life of its own, rather than getting obsessed with measurement. Also, the metrics of measurement for all media today are very very different. Rather than having just one metric, trying to combine all media together, it is also very very important to make sure that every media has its own shelf life and also is measured for the reason why we are using that media today. So today, a traditional media or a digital media or content or performance, everything has its own pros and cons, and therefore needs to be measured accordingly. So I would say that yes, treat every media for the strengths that it has, measure it accordingly, and then look at the success it can give for the brand, and draw learnings from that, rather than being obsessed about the ROI for new media.
Absolutely. Actually, you've segued very nicely into my next point, Naveen. We keep hearing that consumer journeys are not linear anymore, right? I mean, I will read about you, see somewhere, hear it from a friend, follow an influencer who'll talk about it, then see it on outdoor, right? As people who sort of help marketeers build media thinking, media planning, right? If I come to you saying, hey, listen, my consumer is all over the place, I really don't know how to get their attention, give us some, golden guardrails that you guys follow, and hence, something that people who are in the room can actually take back, saying, hey, listen, if you're starting from scratch for a new product, new consumer set, where do you really get started? How do you even think about, like, how do you even start thinking about talking to this customer?
So, what I understand is today brands follow different journeys for different types of consumers today. Today, there are brands which are launching D2C brands only in the direct to consumer space. Brands who want to make it big only in the e-commerce space. There are brands who want to build brands in the traditional way of building brands, right? So, therefore, again, I would say, depending on what the brand stands for and the way it wants to succeed in its own brand life cycle, we need to design media strategies that really help that brand. So there is no one strategy that fits all. There is obviously needs to be a differentiated approach for the different life stages or the different brand types that are emerging today, and there are so many of them. And every brand today is very very clear as to the role that they want to play in a consumer's life.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, if I may just
Yes.
add to what Naveen is saying. I think um, one has to consider first that the first building block in this framework is the right brief. And most often than not, that's where the confusion starts. Because there is no right brief. What you instead hear is a list of KPIs that the client wants to achieve, not a single KPI. And that is, again, which compounds the problem. So I would say some of the frameworks that one should keep in mind is what is the right brief? The right brief also follows what is that one KPI. The marketing landscape is complex, but that does not mean that you chase 7 KPIs. You're not going to see success. So one single KPI, very, very critical. And more importantly, then, to keep mental models aside and trust what the data is telling you. Most often than not, we actually see a lot of mental models at play rather than what the data is telling us. And then we turn around and say, ye to chala nahi na. You said this, but ye to chala nahi na. So I think these would be my top 3 frameworks for any kind of, new brand or new, how do I put it, a new segment that you want to explore.
Wow.
I think I'll take it from her because objective and setting that obviously is extremely important. But I think the bigger one is really around audiences, right? You follow audiences. You started with saying consumers are everywhere. So if you have data, if you have tools and technology that exactly tell you where the consumer is, how much time is he spending on which medium, how do you activate that medium? So I think audiences and understanding them deeply become priority for us to kind of figure out what strategies we're going to work. I'm going to come back to one more point that Preeti talked about, right? The test and learn, and why do you need to, have measurement there? I think I think it's Coke, if I remember it right. They have a 70-20-10 rule, right? That 70% do your conventional stuff that you do, 20 you kind of do and get some stuff of measurement going, but 10 is completely test and learn. So where you want to move towards measurement as well, there is that 70 which is giving you a lot of answers. Be happy with that, right? And then move to the 20 and just be gutsy enough for that 10. Because like Naveen said, not everything and every platform is going to be measured in a similar fashion. If something is working on engagement, please measure it on that. Don't ask for reach over there or vice versa. That's what I'd like to say.
Probably, if I can just quickly add, I agree with everyone here, and uh, two big points which are there related to this is that you can't depend on only one media, right? So there are many D2C brands which are, for example, focusing heavily on retail media, which they should, but at some point in time, obviously, they will evolve and add one or two more channels, and that is something which is very critical because if you don't have a multi-channel strategy, it's very difficult to gain growth. So that is one. And that's where you have to progressively look at where your audience is moving. So completely agree with Anita on that. And I think the third big point is that don't ignore offline, right? You might want to start with digital, but at some point in time, also look at offline as well. And this is me saying it, who is completely focused on as a business, programmatic and digital, but offline has a very important role to play. So do consider that as a part of the mix as well.
Fair point. I mean, as consumers, it adds so much credibility to a brand when you see them offline, right? Tushar, I'll come to you now because, of course, valid points. Have a sharp brief, chase one KPI, have the 10% bucket to waste. How does a marketer feel about it?
If I were to look at both,
Exactly.
I'm in the spot. So I'll answer both the questions. One on the ROI bit and secondly on the linear journey bit. As in the ROI bit, I think that's every day's breakfast question which the board asks any marketer. And I think we are very well equipped to answer with the help of all our friends with all the data models and everything which comes across. But eventually, I think there was a watershed moment about 3 years back when COVID happened. Something called zero-based budgeting got adopted. And all the nice to haves moved out and the must haves remained, right? Now we are building on the must haves. So whatever scanning on ROI, whatever needed to be done has been done. Now is the time to implement, to execute, to reach out to the consumers. That's on the ROI bit for now. On the consumer journey bit, I'm just going to answer it with a campaign that we are running right now called Carry Your Game, right? We are trying to build on the association of hydration, sports, and Bisleri. So eventually what we decided was that we wanted to do an integrated marketing campaign because the consumer is everywhere. The consumer is on digital, it's on TV, it's in the stadiums. We launched it with a film with four sports people. We had Manpreet Singh, we had Lavlina, we had Nishad Kumar, Ashwini Ponappa, and we did a DVC, right? And we went all over YouTube, Instagram, everywhere we did. Then we took sponsorship of 4 IPL teams. We took the campaign there, right? We had our visi-coolers there, and it got covered in TV everywhere. We had ice boxes, we took out limited edition bottles, we branded our trucks, we put out of home, we did content with players. Then we took ultimate table tennis, we took 10 marathons, including the Pro-Cam marathons. Now we have 5 ISL team. We are even doing the Dubai Premier League. We've done Ladakh Marathon. We are doing the national games right now. So one campaign can run across different mediums. It can run on digital, out of home, and the power of an integrated marketing campaign is immense. Because one simple idea, you use different media vehicles to talk about it.
So I totally agree. I mean, integrated is not 1 plus 1 11. It's actually 1 plus 1 110, if you really ask me, right? I mean, as consumer, you've made my life so simple because you're telling me one thing and you're telling me that again and again. Perfect. I actually now want to move to my next topic, which is around lack of common measurement language across the so-called new media, right? Uh, Add to that, a lot of media numbers, especially in the digital world, are actually self-reported, right? I want to hear, what do you guys think? Is it good that nobody's trying to standardize everything? Is it actually a bottleneck? Have we made it more complex than it should be, right? So just the fact that somebody's reporting something else, and most of them are reporting it themselves, right? If you think about it, you would not accept this in the traditional media by saying, I'm only like playing your ad and I'm only reporting what's happening, right? But we accept that in the new media landscape. I want to know, how do you guys feel about it?
So I'm trying to put the right words and not sound right and not rattle too much. Uh, what happened as an evolution of the measurement in the print era or a radio era cannot be used as a guideline for TV, right? We didn't use it, we changed it. But to me, when we use the TV era fundamentals on digital and then say why there is no unified measurement, it makes me wonder, where is our industry headed? Why? Because the audience are not consuming it in a certain linear fashion, which is why it's called linear TV. There's connected TV. There's so many lingos, right? The reason is because the audience have changed the way of consumption. The supply has changed of how content gets consumed. Why should the measurement be the same? There's an advantage. The reason it exists differently is because that's how the medium is. The measurement is an outcome of the medium. And what you're going to measure it for is also changing. How I will measure Instagram, if I do reach frequency GRPs, I mean, I'm going completely wrong of an influencer who is influencer का प्राजक्ता कोहली का GRP 150 होना चाहिए, विराट कोहली का 2000 होना. What is the logic behind it? There's no logic behind it, right? So to me, the evolution of the medium, with whether they are a new medium or old medium, like the way Snapchat looks at it is very different. So would I want Snapchat also to go the YouTube way? No. Would I want them to go Instagram? No. They will have its unique product proposition. Yes, and we are accepting what the platforms provide because the platform has been developed as all-encompassing. And that is the difference. And we need to accept that and look at, hence, some attribution which we all do, or the whole journey mapping. And that's exactly, I think the Bisleri example is a classic case of all of it coming together, right? Now, if he can say that, no, I'm going to only single out my IPL sponsorship as the hero, no, it's wrong, right? Yeah. There's a whole journey that got mapped out in the way consumer got impacted. I'm a big fan of your old brand, and I've bought a lot of products. And I didn't see any ad. I saw in few people's hands. And obviously, I spoke about to somebody. I'm sure some AI heard about it, started bombarding ads to me, and that's how I purchased, right? So, how are you going to map this journey out? How are you going to measure saying that I did X ROI on this advertising? Because it was in somebody's hands. That's the trigger.
So I actually wanted to just go back to everything that we said right now. We consider some medium because we believe that medium can achieve a task that others can't, which essentially means that the measurement of that medium then will be very different from the measurement of the others. I think what is required is a perceptive change both at the industry level. Everything need not be measured to the same base. It will not serve the purpose that you want to, because once it's measured at the same base, then you have to be ready to pull money from somewhere and put somewhere else. So it's interesting because I hear a lot of conversation on measurement, but the moment you measure, people go back still to doing the old way of doing things. So that's even worse. Can it be measured? The answer is yes. You now have AI techniques which are used in multi-touch attribution where you can, but even then, it's not the most accurate, and you will always have somebody saying that not making sense, but jab maine wo kiya tha tab to aisa hua tha, kind of thing. So does the measurement exist? Yes, measurement is evolving, it will get there. Should we really measure everything to one common base? I don't think so.
I'm just going to add to what Monaz is saying because I think you need to first come back to understand why did the agency want to get into this conversation of having a standardized measurement? Because the advertiser out there was saying, I understand TV very well. I get the impression story, I understand the TVR story, but the minute you put digital out there, I'm not getting it. So give me a currency which is equating one to the other. Reality is a 30-second spot vis-a-vis a 6-second bumper or a quarter page and a full page ad has different metrics. So I think the onus lies on both sides to understand that when we are pulling something there are valid logical reasons why we are not equating them. But if we are able to defend them with the right metrics, saying there is an engagement, there is a follower fan, there is business outcome result, there is a clear-cut answer of saying you're getting a delta shift on your sales. Now, when you start having the conversations, both sides are able to defend that a lot better. And with the change in the measurement system, that's what you're really seeing, the multi-touch attribution, the fact that I'm taking individual variables and telling you this variable is giving you a delta of X or Y. I think that evolution is giving us much more confidence on how we are building the entire measurement story.
I'll just quickly add. So, if you really project 10 years down the line, right? So everything will be connected and we are getting a lot more data than what we are getting. We think we are getting a lot of data right now, but we'll get a lot more data in 10 years down the line. We'll have old digital and new digital, all right? And old digital will say that, don't ignore old digital. During that time, what will happen is with all this data, we will need to evolve and have advanced data science models to make sense of all that data. So I think that's where we will be moving as we go along. And I don't think this debate, we'll still be having this debate 10 years down the line, but then we'll be having with different models and different level of, we are right now even talking 6G, maybe we are talking 10G by that time. The models will evolve to that level as well. So I think in that context, that's where we have to really look at it from a data angle as well. And that's what we're talking about modeling also. And that is going to definitely evolve at a completely different level.
Absolutely. Actually, so that my next question is for you, right? You're talking about 10 years ahead. Let me take you 5 years ago, right? There came a word called programmatic, okay? And everybody said, oh my God, this is going to change our lives, right? I mean, no more manual planning needed. There's a smart system which is automatically going to know where to place your digital ads. Everything's going to get streamlined. We've, of course, made great progress, but have we really reached the end of the story that was painted 5 years ago? Probably the answer is no, right? I want to get your view, right, as an expert on this subject is, do you think it's because we've not understood and used it correctly? Or do you think it's on its evolution journey and we will get there, maybe just a little later than the time frame that has been spent on it?
I think we have made huge progress, right? We need to give credit to ourselves that, earlier we were buying manually newspaper ads, right? Then from there, now that, the internet came, then we started buying ads on NDTV separately and Times of India separately, and that was also a manual process. Then from there, we evolved and got an exchange, automated bidding. So we have evolved, right? And of course, the moment we evolve, we forget the evolution and we say that, there is a lot more to be done. And that is always going to remain. That's great about human beings. And so exactly we are in a journey here. And I will again add the data angle, right? I will say that, programmatic is great to bring new channel, all the channels together, basically. And that was the promise. And probably it was over promised to some extent as well. So we have to be always wary about any new technology over promise, basically. That is very, very important. Technology is a tool and it will always have its limitations, but it is still a great tool to bring all the channels together. And then what it also allows is, it can also help you to make sense of your first party data. You can also add third party data to your first party data. You can really create more customized cohorts, figure out which are the channels where your cohorts are, add your data layer as well. So there are a lot of things which can be done, and many advertisers are doing it. Many are in their journey of evolution as well. So I would say, I think we have long way to go, but we can still give a pat to our backs and say that we are evolving at a very good rate. And honestly, if I just look at India market itself, India market is leapfrogging, right? In a short span of time, we will be doing things which the so-called advanced markets might be looking at us for inspiration and for example as well. So yeah, I think we are on a great journey here.
Perfect. I want to ask a last question and then I'll open it up to the audience. I was reading today that Unilever, which a couple of years ago decided to scrap the role of CMOs, right, has actually decided to bring the role back. They're now calling it Chief Growth and Marketing Officer, right? So as marketeers become growth marketeers or growth and marketing custodians, I want to understand how is the media industry and the media fraternity thinking about how will this impact change in their role or their approach when you're now talking to a chief growth and marketing officer versus a chief marketing officer?
No, I'll take this. So I'm not surprised actually. Unilever doing this. So if you see today, and we have marketers on the table here. If you look at the marketers today, and what their CEOs and their companies are expecting them to become. Earlier, the marketers were traditional marketers, building brands, responsible for long-term value. In 10 years, 15 years, the brand gets built. But today, if you look at the marketers, the CEO of the company is expecting the marketer, his marketing department, or head of marketing, to be able to control the entire consumer journey. The entire consumer journey, it is not only about the sale, it is also about the first party data, it is also about the way the consumer is interacting, it is also about CRM, it is also about, so therefore the entire consumer touch point. So whatever touch point the consumer is actually interacting with the brand or the company, the CMO of the company is actually expected by the CEO of the company today to take full responsibility and control of. So having said that, so therefore a lot more responsibility, a very complex set of work for the CMO today, and therefore he obviously has to make sure that this entire consumer journey is mapped along with the help of agency partners, not only from a sale point of view, but also from a future potential and growth point of view. So today, if you're harnessing the first party data, if you're doing lookalike marketing, if you're doing futuristic modeling, so therefore it really helps you, as he rightfully said, to be able to design campaigns better, to be able to reach out better, and therefore to be able to address the consumer better, is what I would say. So yeah, I would say yes. I am not surprised that this is. In fact, I was in a panel last week, and there were CEOs in that panel who were saying what they expect the CMOs to become, and this is the discussion that they said exactly that yes, we expect them to do so much more.
I mean, just to add to it from a CMO's perspective, right? It's always very important that you look at brand building in one lens and you look at business building in the other. They go hand in hand together. Because you're responsible for brand building, for building imagery, for long-term brand health, but you're also responsible for sellout. Sellout is an important part because that is what is fueling all the budgets which are coming in for building the brand. If you will not have any sales, you will not have any monies to invest behind. So they both go hand in hand together. And being in FMCG so far, I mean, P&L always rests with the marketing department, and it's our responsibility to ensure that profits get delivered to the business.
But tell me, Tushar, I mean, because if you get, does it then impact your ability to, like Anita said, have that 10% risk taking? Because if marketeers are also thinking more about ROI and growth, will that take the innovation angle out from
I'm going to answer
brand
this
planning?
question from the lens of the previous question. When you've spoken about GRPs, this, that, and people asking question, you cannot bundle all of it together. It's like bundling apple and oranges together and saying they taste different, right? You cannot. You have to have different, And another important point is when you look at India in particular, you have to win in every mini India. So you used to have, and also if you look at cohorts, you have the youth. You will not reach youth through Hindi GC or news right now in TV. You have to go digital. The yardstick, the elements is different, and you need to experiment as a marketer. Otherwise, you will not be able to, do justice to your whole program.
I'm just going to add one more thing. It's very nice that you read about Unilever having, change designation of a growth officer. The agency guys have it too, right? All of our agency groups today have growth officers. They're doubling up. I think in the previous session, Vinod Hadadi is the growth officer for Densu at an overall level. So I think the part that growth and business growth is extremely important. And with the way the agency folks are pivoting their business, then it becomes extremely important because we also have to find new avenues of staying relevant to the advertiser. So there are practices that we launch, there are things that we'll end up doing, maybe slightly different from what the advertiser is doing, but we are also equally excited about having the growth leads at our side as well.
Actually, that's a very valid point, right? I mean, and I think that's the point I was trying to get to, that as the role of the marketer is changing, the role of the industry is also changing, right? And you rightly said, Anita, that so many of you guys are actually you're actually ahead of the curve, right? There are times where I feel you guys anticipate what we'll need and actually be ready for it. So I think this is an interesting growth trajectory that we're all on. We have 3 more minutes, so I want to open it up to the audience if anybody has a question that they want to ask. Over to you. Abort.
All the media people on the panel kept saying, don't give us too many KPIs, pick one, pick one, pick one. You pick one. Tell us, if you had to be one KPI for all your work, what would it be?
Karthi, you're absolutely right. We're not saying that we are relinquishing responsibility for growth. But I think what marketers also need to understand is that they can't relinquish the marketing function to the agency. Yeah. It goes hand in hand. And you will always see agencies adapt, I feel, to the newer situation faster, both in terms of models that agency comes out for marketers, or in terms of talent, or in terms of even sort of putting skin in the game in terms of remuneration for that matter. I think the confusion starts when you don't have a clear North Star to solve. It's not about which KPI, it is whatever is the KPI. But then let's have that as the North Star. My challenge is that when the North Star itself changes in the middle of the second presentation, then we have a problem, a huge problem.
True. There's this a friend of mine, a marketer friend, who always says that, there is no one medicine that will cure all your problems, right? So why do people feel that one campaign will salvage the entire business and fix everything from revenue to profitability to brand love to everything, right? So it's a little bit like that. Absolutely.
See, just to add, whenever I improve one KPI in my business, my board says, what about those other KPI, right? So I think, it's not going to happen, probably. We want everything and we want it all the time and we have to navigate it. So I don't have an answer actually to this.
Got it. Any other question for the panel? Otherwise, we can wrap up. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, guys.